Hi, I'm Chris from needlepointers.com. Keep watching this video to learn how to make these lavender sachets with your embroidery machine. For these lavender sachets, I'm going to use an embroidery pattern that I purchased from Designs by Juju. And I have this pattern on my USB stick, and it's right here. I would like to duplicate this. I'd also love to be able to stitch the square around each one of these sachets, so then all I have to do is cut them apart and turn them. If I just go in here and go to add a box, a square, the problem is that this is just a box. Even if I resize it to the right size, there's no place here that after it's stitched that I would be able to cut them apart and then turn it without like taking out some stitches. So in order to do this, I'm going to create a custom design by going into my design center, and then I can pick a square, and I want to pick one with rounded corners, and I guess I could pick a rectangle too, but I'm going to resize it so it doesn't matter which. So I picked the square and I picked OK. Now I can press the size button. So I'm going to use the size buttons to make the box the size that I want just for one of the sachets. And the sizing is up here. So I want it to be about 3.5 inches wide and 4.5 inches tall. So you can see as I hold this, it makes the box smaller. Okay, so now I have the size 4.5 tall by 3.5 wide. You can make it any size that will work with your design that you want to stitch on there. So then I need to make the opening so that I can turn this afterwards. So to do that, I'm going to zoom in a little bit and then use the erase button, and I'm going to erase a bit from the middle. And if you erase too much, you can always press the undo button and then it goes back. And so I just want to erase enough that I'll be able to turn this afterwards. And so that's going to be my outline of my lavender sachet. So I'm going to save this to memory. I have gone to the next page, and this here is where you can pick the stitch. And right now it's on a satin stitch, and I just want it to be a regular double stitch. You can pick a color that you want, and you would want it to be a different color than is on your design. So then the last thing you can check is the stitch length, and 0.08 inches is a little bit less than 0.25 millimeters, which is a normal stitch length. So I could bump it up to like 0.9, and that's about a normal stitch length. So then when I'm done, I can press set, and then it says it's going to convert it to an embroidery pattern. And so now it's brought it onto my embroidery screen. At this point, I want to save it to memory again. I'll have it in my embroidery patterns. So now I want to combine the two patterns together. And I don't want this one first because it would end up being in the stitch order first. I'm going to pick embroidery so I can start a new design. The first design I want to add in is the lavender design. So I pick the lavender design and I press set, and that brings that in. And we want to pick lavender first because when we stitch this out, I want to stitch the lavender first. So after I've stitched the lavender design, I'll put my second piece of fabric over top and then stitch the border around so that I can then just cut them apart and turn them. So since the lavender is in there, I'll press add and then go and pick my box that I just made and press set. So now I have the lavender and the box, and I want to stitch, instead of just stitching these one at a time and hooping, I want to make a whole bunch of these. So I want to fill my biggest hoop with as many of these as I can fit. And I'm going to be able to fit about 6 of these in the hoop. I'll duplicate this design so I have 6 of them and place them in the hoop. The one thing you do want to check though before you start doing this is to make sure that your stitching is in the right order. So you can see the first, I have all the embroidery for the lavender design, and then I have the red for the border. Now I'm not going to stitch that in red. I'll probably stitch it in a tan that'll match my fabric. So in order to make more than one of these, I go to the edit screen, and then I want to pick both of them. So if I go to this screen, I can then pick both designs, press OK, and then I can move this design towards the top. I can press the duplicate button, and then I get a second one. I want to leave enough space in between so that I'll have enough room to cut and have a seam allowance for turning this at the end. Okay, so now I want to make another one, so press duplicate. I think that's a good amount of space in between there. And then I can move it down. And I can be pretty close to the edge because you're going to be cutting your fabric and putting it in the hoop. And just make sure your fabric is extending past the edge of the hoop, and then we'll have enough. Now that time it just picked up the one thing and moved it, and I want to always move them together. So I'm going to press undo and undo, and then I can press duplicate again and try picking that up again. I'm also trying to line them up this way and this way so that when I go to cut them apart, it'll be an easy cut straight there and cutting them apart. So one more. So there I have all my designs in the hoop, and it's filling up the big hoop. So now everything is separate and all the colors will be individual colors. So we want to combine all the colors together. To do that, go to the embroidery screen. So now we're ready to embroider, but as you see, all the colors are being duplicated down, down, down for each one of them. To combine the colors so they all stitch together at the same time and less color changes, the Luminaire has a handy button here, this button. And now if you look up top here, before you can see there's like a whole bunch of different colors, and now if I press this, we have all the colors are together. If I go back, so as you look down, you can see all the colors are sorted together all the way down, and all of my outlines are at the end. So I'm ready to stitch. I've hooped some tearaway stabilizer, and I'm floating my piece of fabric on top. Since I floated my fabric here, I want to add a border box around the entire thing, and that's like a basting stitch that it will put down first, and that will hold the fabric in place. I've stitched a bounding box around the outside to hold the fabric in place, and now I'm going to stitch all of the different colors of the lavender design, and then I'll be back after I have all that stitched for us to do the last step. All of the lavender design is now stitched. The next step is the first border box to sew the two layers together. I'm going to place another piece of fabric over top, right side facing down, and I'm going to stitch the two layers together with the custom boxes that we put around each of the designs. And it double stitches it, and it's leaving the gap along the bottom, so I'll have a place to turn these right side out. Alright, so I can unhoop this. The next step, because I like to save some of the big pieces of stabilizer to use in a future project, I am going to trim a 1/2 inch from the stitch lines on each side, and then I want to cut them apart in between each one of the sachets. Next, remove the extra stabilizer from the back of each one of the sachets. After I took off the stabilizer, I trimmed around the corners a little bit to round them off. The next step is to turn them through the opening. You can use a turning stick or a pencil or something to push out the corners, and do that for all of the sachets. So I've turned all of them, and I gave them a little press, and the next step is to fill them with some stuffing and a good amount of lavender. You can fill the entire thing with lavender, but I like making them a little bit soft. So I put in some stuffing, and then I put a couple teaspoons of the lavender, and then more stuffing, and then lavender until I get it filled up. And that makes it like a little pillow that's scented very nicely with lavender. I only have this little bit of lavender left, but I'm going to be purchasing some lavender tomorrow from a local farm near me. You can buy lavender online, You can ask around and find maybe a local farm that is selling lavender, or even grow some on your own and dry it. All right, so I have it all filled up. The last step is to thread a needle and thread and use the ladder stitch to sew it closed. The ladder stitch is just a stitch that goes from one side to the other. You can also whip stitch it closed, or you can even use your sewing machine to just stitch along the edge. When you're stitching with the whip stitch or the ladder stitch, you'll want to take pretty small stitches so that it seals it up nicely and doesn't leave any gaps. We don't want that lavender working its way out. And there's the finished sachet. These lavender sachets are a quick and easy project, and they make nice gifts. They can be put in drawers or in your closet, or put in your car to leave a nice scent. To make the scent come out more, just squeeze the sachet. Like and share our videos, and if you're not a subscriber, subscribe to our channel so you won't miss future videos. Visit our website, needlepointers.com, for lots of machine embroidery tutorials and free projects. While you're there, sign up for our free weekly newsletter so you won't miss new tutorials. Happy sewing!